Now, I know that Steffi has mentioned that she got to meet Adam at ISPO last year. So the big question is, Adam, are you here with us now virtually?
Yeah, absolutely.
Woo!
Hello.
We did it. Adam, honestly, watching that, and I'm sure you've seen that film many times, but wow, just the adrenaline rush and everyone's rooting for you. It must be amazing. Thank you so much for joining us here at ISPO.
Well, it's a great honor, and I get goosebumps every time I see the footage of Silence as well.
Adam, I have so many questions from your fans, your followers, your well-wishers. So I'm going to throw them at you because we want to serve the masses here. And you try to answer them as slowly or quickly as you want. We'll try to see how many we can do the next few minutes. Is that all right? So here's the first question that comes in saying, is there a difference in training or climbing outdoor versus preparing and training for the Olympics?
Yes, it is very different, most importantly, because for the Olympics, there is this format of 3 different disciplines, which is speed, lead, and boulder. Let's say if I was only training for lead, then the training for lead in the competitions and training for super hard sport climbing project outdoors would not maybe differ that much, but it differs quite radically at the moment, as I need to add speed climbing and some, let's say, modern style of bouldering on the top of training, mostly endurance and power endurance for lead.
All right. Now, the question was, regarding the Olympics, how hard or disappointing was it for you to stop your preparations for the Olympics?
Well, last spring, around 1 year ago, if I knew that the Olympics would be postponed for another year, that would be like the worst horror thought that I would imagine. But then during March, when it was like speculated whether the Olympics will be postponed or not, when the news finally arrived that the postponement is going on, it was more kind of a relief. I had the time to really prepare myself mentally for it and try to make the advantage out of it, because I definitely still had quite a lot of potential to progress in speed climbing and modern bouldering. And so I thought 1 more year of training could be extra helpful.
Would be beneficial. Now, there are some questions about how one trains, and in particular, someone's very curious to know about your nutrition and your diet. The exact question is, what's your approach to diet and nutrition while you're training, and do you avoid certain foods?
I definitely put a lot of emphasis on the quality of what I eat, and that's definitely, I do avoid stuff like, fast food, and I do cook a lot every day. Let's say 3 times a day I get a warm meal. And even if I'm traveling, I'm always supplied with some lunch boxes that I carry on, or I even warm them up in my van. So I always try to think about it. I definitely do avoid some foods, but that would, I think, take a lot of time to explain. But in general, it's the real food and high quality food, and not that much bullshit, let's say.
Not as much of the fast food, which I just happened to have about 20 minutes before coming on here, because that's what we have in the studio under lockdown. But I'm curious, it's amazing because preparation is in the obvious elements, but also in the not so obvious elements. I know from elite athletes, having talked to them, that even small things like what snacks are sitting around in your car as you're traveling from one venue to another has to be thought out. Otherwise, you end up falling like everyone else into eating something that you then regret. I'm just curious, what are your go-to in your bag? Like, what are some of the nutrition, energy bars, or refueling that you have on the go?
So in case I really, really don't have a time, I always have some protein bars or some protein powder that you just mix with water. That's definitely way better than to getting something bad on the gas station. And I usually really have always a flask of warm water or some tea. that always makes the traveling so much nicer and more comfortable.
Absolutely. Now, I think there's someone who's an aspiring climber who's asked the next question because he or she wants to know the secret to being one of the best climbers in the world.
You know, climbing is composed of so many elements. Like, you can be strong as hell, but as long as you don't have the right mental aspect of the climbing, you can't really be the best. So I think, if I should say only one factor why I'm climbing the way I'm climbing, is that I just love it so much. I've been climbing for so many years, and I've never, even though it is hard training, and it is hard training what I do at the moment for the Olympics, I just really do enjoy it, every single moment of it. For me, it's not a sacrifice. I just love to climb, and that's why I love to train. And that I think is a gift that was given to me that is absolutely the most crucial.
Absolutely. It is a gift and it's a blessing to be able to do what you love for your life and to be able to do this. So Max on YouTube here has a question, and Max wants to know, when did you start climbing and what are your future goals?
I started climbing when I was really little kid. I was born into a family where virtually everyone climbs. So when I was 3-4 years old, I was looking at my parents at the crag, they were climbing, and I wanted to try it as well. So I don't remember my first route ever, but I do remember, for example, my first competitions when I was 6 years old. And since then, I think I've been climbing 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay.
And my future goals are too many, but the biggest goal is just to be able to climb for as long as it will possibly be. You know, not only like on the highest top level, but I just really enjoy the movement, the whole like lifestyle that you live as a climber when you climb on the rock.
That's an interesting answer, because the question that comes in next is, when you have nearly achieved everything like the 9C, can you enjoy climbing without any record breaking? And I think what you just said there is just the movement and the community is enough to stay involved in the game, even if you're not breaking records. Are you sticking to that answer, or do you have another answer to that question?
Yes, I do enjoy every kind of climbing that I do. From time to time, I really do enjoy climbing something even easy. But sometimes I really do enjoy the challenge part of the climbing. And that's also, when I look at the super hard route, it somehow looks more interesting, more challenging. And usually it's not only about the beauty of just being out there high above the ground, but also the beauty of making some very interesting movements, like movements that I have never done before. And silence is a perfect example of that. I have never done moves like this on any other climb. So a part of the motivation why I want to climb better and better is that once you really feel how it feels to climb a super hard route with this super amazing, interesting movements, you just don't want to come back to something like, let's say, more simple. So basically, the harder I climb, the more I can enjoy in a way.
Has anyone attempted to climb silence again? And if not, who would you like to see try?
It was tried by Sebois, a French climber who repeated the neighboring route, which is called Move 9B. And so I'm hoping he will set his sights for this route maybe this year. We'll see. I'm quite excited.
And when it comes to blindfolded climbing, how do you train for that?
I didn't train specifically for blindfolded climbing. I think I've been training the whole life just trying to climb as much as possible for being able to climb an 8B blindfolded. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we got time for one more question. So let's see. This sounds like a negative question, but based on your personality so far, I bet you have a really positive spin on it. Maybe one that will motivate us all during the season. But the question is, how do you handle defeat?
It's a tough one. You know, if I really put a lot of effort into something, I train really hard, then it's hard to accept the defeat. But, you know, I think in the future, there's always something to look forward. So once there is a defeat, it really takes some time for me to like really digest it. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's a couple of days. But then climbing is just so great. It is always next challenge, always a next interesting thing that I just get immersed and I kind of forget about the defeat. But at the same time, every defeat could be a lesson that you can learn something from.
Absolutely. Every defeat is a lesson that you can learn something from. I think Paul summarizes how we're all feeling. Great guy, so down to earth, and even better, he's featured at ISPO. And I also want to say your passion for what you do is so obvious by the fact that you've been smiling the entire time. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being a part of ISPO. It means so much to us.
Thanks. It was a great honor, and have a nice evening.
Thank you so much. So that was Adam, the legendary successful climber here at ISPO. That is a wrap for day 3.